The Philippines has long been one of the weakest naval powers in Asia, hampered by decades of underinvestment, political instability, and an over-reliance on second-hand ships from allies. For years, its Navy's backbone has been a handful of converted American Hamilton-class cutters, rebranded as the Pilar-class, alongside 3 ex-Royal Navy Peacock-class corvettes, now called the Jacinto-class. These ships, while useful, are essentially cast-offs, old hulls with dated systems that were never designed to counter the scale of challenges the Philippines now faces in the West Philippine Sea. That is why the decision to procure a new generation of offshore patrol vessels under the Rajah Sulayman program represents a critical turning point in Manila's modernization strategy. It signals not just the acquisition of newer steel, but a redefinition of how the Philippine Navy intends to project presence and safeguard sovereignty in contested waters. The Rajah Sulayman-class, based on Hyundai's HDP 2200+ design from South Korea, consists of 6 vessels ordered under Horizon 2 of the Armed Forces Modernization Plan. Each ship displaces around 2,400 tons, measures roughly 94 meters in length, and is optimized for long-endurance patrols with a range exceeding 5,500 nautical miles. The first of the series, BRP Rajah Sulayman, has already been launched and is expected to enter service in 2026, with the remainder following over the next 2 years. Unlike the Hamiltons and Peacocks, these are not hand-me-downs. They are purpose-built to Philippine requirements, integrating modern sensors, modular systems, and facilities for both helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles. In short, the Philippines is finally fielding patrol ships designed for the 21st century, not relics of the Cold War. Technically, the ships strike a careful balance between affordability and capability. The main gun is the ubiquitous 76mm OTO Malera, supported by 2 to 4 remote-controlled 30mm cannons. The sensor suite includes a modern 3D surveillance radar capable of tracking surface and aerial contacts, providing domain awareness across the archipelago's vast exclusive economic zone. Each OPV carries a helicopter deck, suitable for light helicopters such as the AW1009 or H145M, and is designed with space for UAV operations, a vital asset for persistent maritime surveillance. With a crew complement of 70 to 100, the vessels are optimized for efficiency, a crucial factor given the Philippines' manpower and budgetary constraints. Critics will note the absence of heavyweight anti-ship missiles or air defense systems, and they are correct. These OPVs are not meant to slug it out with a Chinese destroyer. Instead, they are instruments of presence, deterrence, and law enforcement in the gray zone, precisely where most of Manila's maritime confrontations actually occur. The timing of this acquisition could not be more urgent. Recent years have seen escalating tensions between the Philippines and China, particularly around Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal, where Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels regularly attempt to block resupply missions, harass fishermen, or establish de facto control. In these situations, deploying a frigate armed with Harpoon missiles is excessive and politically risky. But sending a lightly armed OPV, flying the Philippine flag, and recording every encounter is both proportionate and strategically smart. It places the burden of escalation on the other party, while allowing Manila to frame incidents as unilateral harassment. The Rajah Sulayman-class therefore fits neatly into the country's transparency initiative, whereby every Chinese maneuver is documented, publicized, and used to rally international support. The strategic role of these OPVs goes beyond simply patrolling reefs. They provide the Philippine Navy with a continuous, sustainable presence across its 2.2 million square kilometers of EEZ. They relieve high-end combatants like the Rizal-class frigates from constabulary duties, allowing those ships to focus on training, deterrence, and potential wartime missions. They are also ideal platforms for international engagement. The Philippines has intensified exercises with partners such as the United States, Australia, Japan, and more recently Britain, all of whom see Manila as a frontline state in the South China Sea contest. By fielding modern OPVs that can interoperate easily in humanitarian, patrol, or joint drills, the Philippines projects itself as a more credible and capable ally. When compared to regional equivalents, the Rajah Sulayman-class stands out as a middleweight. Indonesia's Sampari-class missile corvettes are smaller but heavily armed. Vietnam's DN-2000 patrol ships are similar in role but less modern, and Malaysia's Kedah-class offshore patrol vessels are larger but still underarmed. The Philippine design is competitive in terms of sensors, aviation facilities, and endurance. Where it falls short is firepower. No missiles, no vertical launch cells, no medium-range air defense. This reflects Manila's deliberate choice. The ships are intended for peacetime assertiveness, not wartime battles. Facing Chinese Coast Guard vessels displacing over 10,000 tons, the Philippines cannot win in tonnage, but it can win politically by ensuring its ships are always present, always visible, and always backed by cameras and alliances. Yet the potential for growth is significant. The modular design of the HDP 2200 Plus leaves room for future upgrades. In theory, the Rajah Sulayman-class could be fitted with anti-ship missiles such as the Naval Strike Missile or short-range surface-to-air systems to improve survivability. Adding UAV integration would multiply their surveillance reach, especially if linked to new coastal radar stations and BrahMos missile batteries now being deployed. In such a layered defense architecture, the OPVs serve as the outer picket, detecting, reporting, and deterring intrusions, while heavier frigates and missile batteries provide the teeth. If the Philippines follows through with this vision by 2030, it could field a balanced force of 6 OPVs, 4 Rizal-class frigates, 2 to 3 new Batch 2 frigates, and a network of coastal missiles. That would not make Manila a naval giant, but it would represent a credible deterrent, enough to complicate Beijing's calculus in the gray zone. Of course, none of this comes without challenges. The Philippines has historically struggled to maintain even modest fleets, hampered by corruption, weak logistics, and inconsistent funding. Training sufficient crews, establishing maintenance facilities, and building an indigenous support industry are as important as acquiring the ships themselves. There is also the political question of sustainability. Will future governments continue to fund naval modernization, or will economic pressures and domestic issues again relegate the Navy to an afterthought? If history is any guide, consistency will be the hardest part of this modernization journey. Nevertheless, the Rajah Sulayman-class embodies a pragmatic and forward-looking approach. It recognizes that the Philippines cannot match China ship for ship, but it does not need to. By fielding cost-effective OPVs that maximize presence, interoperability, and visibility, Manila is investing in the tools it needs for the fight it is actually facing, the daily grind of patrols, blockades, and standoffs that define the South China Sea. These ships are not war winners, but they are sovereignty holders. They will not deter a full-scale naval clash, but they may prevent one by ensuring every incident is met with a professional Philippine response. In the end, the Rajah Sulayman-class should be seen not as a solution, but as a foundation. They represent a Navy finally stepping out of its reliance on donated relics, a Navy beginning to think in terms of layered defense and regional interoperability. Whether Manila has the will to build upon this foundation remains to be seen. The true test will not be the launching of these ships, but their sustained presence in the contested shoals of the West Philippine Sea, where gray hull meets white hull, and where sovereignty is not just claimed, but physically upheld.